Hello and welcome. It's your host, John Davidson, and I'm here with episode 19 of Career Coaching After Hours. So, thank you for joining me. I'm actually re-recording this session, so hopefully this one's a little smoother here on YouTube, but this is an episode I've been looking forward to doing since last month. So, I'd like to get into it. It's the Workday Lawsuit, and been a lot of stories in the news about Workday, one of the larger applicant tracking systems out there. There's a lawsuit where it is a collective action now and may turn into a class action, but definitely raising some eyebrows and really at the heart and intersection of a lot of issues I deal with, whether that's AI and ethics or how human resources is adapted to the modern age, in terms of how we make hiring decisions, how we collect resumes, how we sort them, how we offer people not just interviews, but also jobs. So really interesting lawsuit that actually started last year, 2024, and we're starting to see some of the ramifications here this year, 2025. So I'll go through my standard and kind of classic disclaimer slides here. So this series is about as much for me as it is for my clients. I reflect on some of the issues that I deal with my clients and issues I write about on LinkedIn or Medium. So it's audience agnostic. It's a way for me to kind of meditate and expand on some of the issues that I deal with. So likely I'm not your career coach or career counselor, but if I am, then wonderful. But you might want to consider consulting a true professional career coach or listening to somebody who's actually got an understanding of your situation. And as usual with all my presentations, it's to the best of my knowledge as of now. And like anything you see here on YouTube, check your sources and consider if the person giving the lecture has the education, training, and experience to merit your time. So I thank you for joining me. And as usual, please put your ideas and comments in the comment section, of course, here on YouTube. And I do want to say thank you very much to my professional network, because they've been very gracious and they put in a whole bunch of really good comments on my initial LinkedIn post here a little while back. So I'll dive into the CNN article, which is one of the first outlets that I heard about it from. And certainly this raises, like I say, a lot of issues, because when we talk about Workday, it's very prevalent throughout larger companies in terms of a fairly dominant applicant tracking system. I actually did a whole article about the Fortune 500 and best companies to work for, and a lot of the best companies to work for and Fortune 500s use Workday as a way to sort through all the resumes and the applications. So this has ramifications deep into a host of different industries. So together, the plaintiffs, you've got a group of plaintiffs here, all over 40, some with disabilities, but have some real concerns. Some of the smoking gun evidence suggests that folks are getting auto-rejected from their applications within minutes or hours or even off hours, suggesting that AI is really doing a lot of the automatic rejections versus actually having real people evaluate the resumes and application materials. So the plaintiffs are blaming the algorithm, and I think we'll see it's probably algorithms, plural, that disproportionately disqualifies folks over 40. And that's serious stuff, because so many of us derive our financial freedom and stability from our primary source of income, in many cases our work. So this is a real food on the table type issue. And again, I want to thank my network. I got a lot of comments, a lot of feedback, a lot of points made. You can kind of see my article there kind of dovetailing on this. But lots of issues here related to ethics and should we use AI in hiring decisions or even vetting decisions whatsoever, in any element of work-related software. So tough questions. This article I think is really interesting as well. I'll put the link. The links are actually in the slide deck. I'll put them here on YouTube as well. Dr. Asare, and really good points about kind of the depth of all of this. So if we go back to, you can see in the notes there, 2024, Derek Mobley, it's Mobley versus Workday, filed an employment discrimination lawsuit alleging discrimination and other applicants, not just age, but also race and disability. So I think some of the headlines seem to zero in primarily on age, and federal protection against age discrimination kicks in at 40 years old. So I think a lot of folks get surprised that the number is so low. I think that's pretty darn young, but we've got some other issues to deal with here too, as far as the applicant class. But when we think of not just ATS, applicant tracking systems, but AI, take a look at this stat here. I think this is really telling. About 87% of companies are using AI for recruitment. And I think what we're going to see with this lawsuit and others is an interesting breakdown as to, is AI being used for maybe recruitment, direct outreach, or sorting resumes, vetting resumes, if not making perhaps some elements of the hiring decision, maybe whittling candidate pools from 5 to 4 to 3 or something like that. So we might see some of that, some smoking gun evidence in discovery. But applicant tracking systems, I describe them as a broad category of workplace software, Bamboo HR, iSIMS, Workday being a few, Taleo that you might see out there. So in theory, they're supposed to streamline and automate the recruitment process and maybe assist human resources professionals and talent sourcers. But if they're discriminating, well, that's another whole set of issues. But I thought this was really interesting here, where Workday is kind of scrambling to get some AI certifications. So if you want to take a look at the press release, I think we're going to see more of this, where not just Workday, but maybe Bamboo HR, maybe iSIMS, maybe some of the others rushing out to kind of prove that they're AI certified, that they've got an ethical set of commitments set up around AI, as a company, but also as a vendor. So I think we've got some really interesting issues that might pop up here, because you'll see Workday in the public and the private sector. Like I say, it's ATS is a broad category of software. So this might be perhaps a race for certifications. And post that I just did here today, in fact, LinkedIn Learning and Microsoft had pinged me about their AI for Organizational Leaders certificate. This is an actual professional certificate. It's about 5 hours of content. You can see I finally muddled my way through it. But I think maybe another layer to all of this, and I think this is going to happen such that human resources professionals and recruiters and the talent sourcers might want to be individually certified or have an individual certificate as to the use of AI, the ethical use of AI, managers, executives, what have you. I actually applaud this certificate because it does have some continuing ed credits from HRCI and SHRM. So those are two of the big human resource certification organizations, as well as PMI, Project Management Institute, which I think speaks to the quality of this one. So you can see my thoughts on that. But we might see some more of these kind of maneuvers where the talent leaders, HR professionals may want to be individually certified on top of using software that is also certified, because you might have these questions as to the products you're using and then also how they're deployed. So it'll be interesting to see if there's some blowback on individual employers that are using Workday, not just Workday as essentially a vendor or as an employer. But these aren't new issues. So like I say, this lawsuit started last year, 2024, and if you're willing to dig a little bit deeper, if you go back to 2024, 2023, I think you'll find some really interesting position pieces and some serious concerns about AI, predictive intelligence, and predictive systems. So for example, here's the American Bar Association, and they make a really interesting kind of point here too, about AI producing biased results because of limitations in the training data. So while there seem to be some really neat uses of AI, and I freely admit I use Microsoft Designer for some of my artwork, Grammarly Pro to help me write a little bit better, but those I think augment my creativity. I'm not turning those projects over wholesale. And that might be one of the real concerns here is our companies or HR professionals turning over maybe too much of the human work and letting AI bias, which may be worse than regular plain old human bias, take over. And I think possibly we might be in a future where companies might feel like they want to use AI as a way to check their own human bias. Perhaps once these AI models, maybe in theory, could have less bias in the future. This is a really interesting kind of discussion in terms of where the data is coming from and who's checking up on whether AI or whether some of these models are actually biased. There's a study here from UW, number 7 university in the world. So it's where I did my undergrad. But this had some really interesting points. I think folks who are interested in these topics might want to check out this study just from last year, 2024. And you can see a note here, further analysis show that black males are disadvantaged in up to 100% of cases, replicating real-world patterns of bias in employment settings and validate some hypotheses of intersectionality. And I think that's an incredibly helpful statement to potentially see the depth of these issues. Is you've got AI that's maybe built on bias, but also maybe doesn't have enough information such that maybe AI and our ATSs make life a little easier, maybe more streamlined, but at what cost? And so maybe this lawsuit will bring some more heat and light to some of these issues in terms of how we train AI and that intersection of how it's used in our applicant tracking systems. But my hope too is that more human resources professionals and recruiters and talent sourcers and sorcerers maybe take a couple of deep breaths and take AI with a little bit more of a grain of salt there. But if we go back yet one more year, the ACLU had, I think, a really good, thoughtful piece here about AI. And even then, even a couple years ago, 70% of companies, 99% of Fortune 500 companies already using AI-based tools in the hiring process. And that also might be really kind of an interesting issue we're going to see explode and expand in some of these lawsuits. And I think it's not unreasonable to think that maybe other applicant tracking systems may follow suit, is these AI-based automation might be far more prevalent than we're all willing to admit. And in a nation full of employees, this is a pretty important issue. So thank you for joining me. This is a short episode, but did want to get into it. Absolutely would love to hear folks' thoughts if you use Workday or if you've applied for jobs and you've seen Workday in the URL, if you've experienced issues, maybe what seems like automatic rejections or automatic rule outs. Here are some sources there, a little small, but I'll put those in the YouTube notes there too. You've got Fortune, you've got Workday's own press releases there, CNN, of course, American Bar Association, ACLU. So really hot button legal topic. Certainly nothing that I studied when I did employment law twice in law school. I was fortunate enough to have to take it twice, but we live in a brave new world of not just software, but AI-driven software. So I think we'll see some interesting issues about ethics in terms of what software we use, how we deploy it, how we check it and double check it and even triple check it. So thank you for joining me again. Feel free to reach out to me if you like, email, LinkedIn, pop some comments in. Very interested to hear what folks think, whether you're a job applicant, maybe you write job descriptions, maybe you're a hiring manager, maybe you really like Workday, maybe you use Workday ethically, or maybe you have Workday and you check the math and check the results on a regular basis. But sure, you can hear the music behind me. Hopefully it's not too loud in this episode. I tried to keep it chill, but if you have ideas for future episodes, please let me know. I'm sure I'll be doing some updates on this issue. And thank you all Thank you, viewers, students, my supporters, and my clients. You're all rock stars. Thank you all very much. Have a great day, and I'm looking forward to the second half of 2025. All right. Take care of yourself. Okay. Have a good one. Bye-bye.